Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Carmen Paulino, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Cannabis Task Force of Community Board 12. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We, I'm so sorry, there's just that the recording just stopped. Are we good?
What that's gonna do is not record it on Zoom, it's gonna record on YouTube, there's no
Got it.
memory.
All right, no problem. Like I was mentioning, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Today will be a very small and brief meeting. Some of you know this already. Our chair, Nobles Crawford, won't be able to join us, so I'll be leading the meeting today. And we just have a few updates, and we'll just get started. But before we do that, I want to introduce the rest of our committee members, and I'll just allow them to introduce themselves.
Thanks, Carmen. I'm Jumirna Kober, and I am one of the members of the Cannabis Task Force.
Hector?
Thank you, Vice Chair. How's it going, everyone? My name is Hector Bonilla. I'm also a part of the Licensing Committee and the Youth and Education Committee, and I have the honor of serving under Carmen and Nobles.
And perfect timing. I was actually just going to say we were still waiting for one more member of our task force, which is Carl. Carl, we're actually doing introductions, so if you can just briefly introduce yourself online, and then we'll get started. I'm not sure where the camera.
Carl Unebu, committee member. Thank you.
Welcome, Carl, and feel free to settle in. So the first thing that I just actually wanted to bring to order was that we've been discussing, as you know, this task force started last year, and we have been reviewing applications that come before Community Board 12, and it's actually a really big part for us to do so. But as you know, this process is fairly new, and we've just been kind of like going along with it, and also just trying to do things as they come along. But so far, we've just been lucky to actually review and approve, or at least provide a positive opinion to OCM for 3 different dispensaries in our neighborhood. And as things keep happening, again, the process will be more refined. One of the things that we discovered recently is that the timing is just not really great. So for sake of making sure that the office, which is understaffed, making sure that the office actually has enough time to send out emails and respond to applicants, and also that the task force members also have sufficient timing. We wanted to make sure that we kind of update our protocol or just our guidelines for applicants. So this past week, the task force gathered and we had a phone call about what that process will look like. And I just wanted to briefly go through it today. And this process will likely be updated on our website. And so I'll just want to get started with that first. I won't be able to share it right now on the screen, but I'll just quickly go through it and just walk us through it. So essentially, we want to make sure that we're facilitating a very smooth process. So we want to make it very clear that there's a deadline to make sure that people are submitting all of the documents and the paperwork. Some of you may already know that CB12 requires a questionnaire to be filled out before coming before the task force, and also for us to provide an opinion. So we just kind of want to walk through this process very briefly. And then also at the end of that, I'll share, we're joined tonight by Araceli from CUNY, and she's been participating in a lot of our task force meetings, and she's a wonderful partner. She's actually going to be presenting next month on the Cannabis Equity Report. Araceli had also shared with us some suggestions that she had for our protocol. So also thank you for that, Araceli, and I'll make sure that I go through that as well and we can review it. Carl, we just printed this, and maybe you and Jamina could review it. So first things first, what we want to do, and I'll try to show this very briefly, and again, I won't be able to share it on the screen, but we want to make sure that on our webpage, there's just a very clear process of what they're supposed to do. So we want to put it away like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. So the first step is just submitting notification to the community board. And that essentially says under Section 76 of the Cannabis Law, applicants must notify the community board at least 30 days before submitting their application to the Office of Cannabis Management. That notification has to be done by using this official form that's called Notification to Municipality. And the community board's review process actually starts right at that time that we receive it. And when I say we, I say the district board, the district office. The notification to municipality has to be submitted using one of three methods. So that's certified mail or overnight delivery service or personal service. You can actually just bring it into the office. Everyone's really friendly here. And like I mentioned, that review process starts once we receive the actual notification. One of the things that we changed and wanted to make sure that was very clear is that there is going to be a deadline for the Cannabis Task Force to review the application, because we just need sufficient time, and also to give the office enough time to process and do everything that's on their end. So that's going to be submitting the notification at least 21 days before the next scheduled meeting. So if you were here today, or if you were to be before the board today, you would have had to submit that notification ideally by February 10th. And if you don't submit it by that time, what happens is that once the office gets it, and it's between that window, let's say the February 10th and March 3rd window, the office is going to reach out to the applicant and just let them know, listen, this is not sufficient time. You can do one or two things. We can request an extension from OCM to review your application at the next month's meeting, or essentially asking them for another 30-day extension, which gives us a complete timeline of 60 days to review it and provide our opinion. Or they can just resubmit the notification to the municipality at a later date. So we want to make sure that we're just doing that, and we'll be communicating that. So again, the Cannabis Task Force, we meet the first Monday of every single month. So we want to make sure that people are submitting it at least 21 days if you want to get on the agenda for the following month. Is that clear? We're good? Once you actually, now step two, once you actually provide notification to our district office, you are going to receive a questionnaire. And this questionnaire, we have gone through it at previous meetings. Feel free to look at our YouTube recordings. It is also on our website. So this questionnaire, you will get at the moment that we receive your application, I'm sorry about that, your notification to us. And you have to complete the questionnaire and return it along with any supporting documents. We currently ask for the questionnaire, any floor plans that they have, any letters of support that the applicant may have, and the public notice, which I'll go through in the next step. So they have to submit the questionnaire along with any supporting documents at least 10 days before the scheduled review. And that scheduled review obviously would be at the following meeting. So 10 days before the person or the applicant comes before the task force to get reviewed, they would have to submit all of their documentation, including their questionnaire. If we don't have all of that documentations by then, the application will not be reviewed. Again, the board office will reach out to the applicant and inform them that it has to be returned to them. We need all the materials that we require, and that they will be asked to resubmit a new notification to municipality, and then complete the application for consideration at the next meeting, given the sufficient time. The other,
We have a sample of what the notification from to municipality looks like.
yes, it's actually online, and one of the things that Araceli in the draft protocol that she did, and we'll take a look at this, and I think that there will be some things that we should probably include here
Right.
in our updated. She actually provides, or she included a link to it, but I can actually do that
Yeah,
in here
just,
really quickly.
so
So
everybody
thanks for
gets it.
asking that. Let me just pull it up.
It's always helpful to.
Yeah, of course. It's a pretty straightforward form.
Mhm.
There it is.
Perfect.
All right, let me just share it on the screen.
Can you print? Is it possible?
I can also print it, yeah,
wonderful,
of course.
please.
I can print it from here. We'll have to ask
Okay,
Paola to do it.
all right.
But for everyone, this is essentially what it looks like. They just put their name, license number if applicable, the information about the business, what kind of application it is, their address, their mailing address, and that's essentially it. They sign it and they send it to us. This is, Carl, what starts the timeline and the clock. So the second that we get this in our office by one of those three forms that I shared, one of those three ways that I shared, that's when our review starts. So we have the 30 days to submit an opinion to the Office of Cannabis Management.
So 30 days from when this is submitted,
Right,
or after they show up here?
I'm sorry?
Is it
From the notification, that's when our clock
from
starts.
this? Okay.
Which is why mostly we have to end up asking for an extension of time so that we can provide our opinion within 60 days.
Right.
But it messes us up because someone can actually just submit this a week before our meeting.
Mhm.
So then even when we ask the extension, right, because what people will remember, and I'll go through this later on in the process, is that once it actually comes before the task force, it will still need to go to the general board, right? Because we'll make
Right,
our
right.
recommendation here and it will go.
Mhm.
Between the task force and the board, there's 3 weeks in between.
Right.
So there's very little time for us to fit that 30 days, which is why we must ask people to submit this at least 21 days before. And if not, they'll just have to wait and submit it again.
Mhm.
One of the other things that I was actually considering was just creating like a chart. So let's say if you want to be seen at the April meeting, you must submit it before this date. So something along that
Yeah,
line, that
that'd
it's
be
just very clear
that'd be
so that people
wonderful,
are not
yeah.
like,
That'd be
well,
great.
21 days. So
That'd be
I
great.
started doing that chart and we'll probably update it as well, just at least for the remaining of the calendar year, so people can just see like what that deadline actually looks like instead of like having to calculate it themselves.
Yeah, that'd be
And
very
so
good.
that it's just very clear.
Yeah.
But this is what the form looks like, and I will stop sharing. So once we get all the once we get the form and we receive once we get the form, we send them out the questionnaire. Then they have 10 days before the meeting to actually submit the questionnaire with any supporting documentation and the public notice. For those of you who don't know, CB12 has a public notice requirement. Applicants must actually post a public notice on the storefront exterior of the proposed dispensary location as soon as they receive it from Community Board 12. This actually just ensures that the community has enough time to provide comments and to participate in the review process. That's something that we want to see more of. At the last several reviews that we've had, I'm not sure if a lot of people from the community actually showed up to express, their opinions, but we want to make sure that we are keeping them in mind whenever we are reviewing this. So that's something that's really, really important. And failure to post the notice will result in your application not being reviewed. It's very similar to our liquor and licensing, the SLA, and our other committee that
Process, right.
reviews that process. They have a public notice requirement, so we're kind of like following that
Now, let me
process
ask
as
you
well.
this. So if they show up with some of the documentation on meeting day, will you still accept it?
No, because it's not enough time. If we haven't reviewed it before and they've received the questionnaire, no, because ideally they would have had sufficient time to complete the questionnaire. The reason why we are essentially making sure that we are we're not necessarily rewriting it. We have some guidelines on our website already, but making sure that it's very clear is that so that it gives the office sufficient time to respond, so that it also makes sure that the applicant has enough time, right? We don't want to send them something, a week before and say, hey, fill this out. They may want to share that with their attorneys, with the other managing members, I don't know, but we want to make sure that everyone has sufficient time. So if it's the case that someone did provide notice, but they didn't send the questionnaire, and then they just show up to the meeting with the questionnaire,
Right.
we unfortunately won't be able to review it, because it doesn't even give us enough time to prepare questions.
Questionnaire is different. I'm talking about maybe some of the supporting documentation.
Oh, the supporting documentation?
They come to the meeting with it.
That's actually a really good question.
Because I was on the licensing committee.
Sometimes they do it like the Friday
Right,
before.
Right.
Yes, I want to essentially, we can discuss this as a group, and I see what you're saying, right? If they've already submitted the questionnaire
Right.
and the public notice requirement, because that is that's like,
Right.
there's no exception about
Right,
that.
right.
But the other, let's say the supporting documentation, maybe any letters of support that they may have gotten in that
Right,
week or something
right.
like that, then yes, they can definitely, I think that's fine, but I feel like the big chunk of it shouldn't be something that's left to,
Yeah.
3 days before the meeting.
Yeah. So the
not being
licensing
fair.
committee, we accept, they come in that day with, as long as they put in the questionnaire, the public.
As long as they
notice,
did put in the main documents.
Right.
Yeah, Hector, do you have any thoughts on that? Okay, we'll just ask him later, but that's actually a good, I think, again, if they have the main documents,
right.
then it's fine. If there's
Yeah,
anything else, like,
right.
the floor plan, maybe they weren't able to get us a
Right,
copy of that and all that
exactly,
stuff, then I feel like that makes sense. So back to the public notice requirement, we want to make sure that they provide sufficient notice so that the community has enough time to provide their commentary and just participate in this process. So same along with the time that the questionnaire is due, which is at least 10 days before your review date or before the committee meeting, you have to submit a date stamp photo of the posted public notice along with the completed questionnaire. So that has to be 10 days before, to make sure that people have notice to be able to come to the community board meeting in case they have any suggestions or comments on this applicant. And then step 4, the last thing is just the Cannabis Task Force meeting review. So after you have provided the notice, you have received the questionnaire, you have filled out the questionnaire, you have returned it back to our office, and you have put up the public notice requirement, then that's when we will have our review. The applicants will receive a notice of the date and time of the scheduled review, and our Cannabis Task Force meets on the first Monday of every month at 6:30 p.m. unless otherwise announced, and applicants must attend to answer any questions about their applications, and failure to appear will result, unfortunately, in unfavorable recommendation to OCM. We think it's important that we just don't have an application that we're just reading off it, but we want to make sure that we're engaging with you and actually asking any questions and get any clarity that we may need at that time. And we also we put in here that we ask the applicants to just bring a copy of all the documents that they submitted, just to make sure that we are, that we have a record of the same thing that they say that they submitted, but also so that they have their own copy as well to review with us while they're here. And during this meeting, we will actually just hear any public comments, and we're going to vote on a recommendation. And this recommendation will actually then be referred to the general board for a vote at that meeting. And that meeting usually is held on the 4th Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m., except during summer, which is, we have a summer recess in July and August. And that is just essentially it. And then at the end, we just have just kind of like very basic, important deadline summary. So just submit notification 21 days before, post public notice immediately after receipt, submit proof of public notice and questionnaire 10 days before the meeting, and attend the Cannabis Committee, the Cannabis Task Force meeting, and then attend the general board meeting if desired. It is not required for the applicant to attend the general board meeting, but they may do so if they wish. So that's essentially what we discussed last week and what we wanted to share with you all. And then I just want to address what Araceli had shared with us as well, which essentially incorporates some of this, but I think there's some really wonderful things here that is already on our website. So on our website, we actually have a checklist at the end. I'm not sure if you guys have seen that, and maybe we can pull it up here. So let me share the screen. So this is the website that would be updated, or this is a portion of the website that would be updated with all this information. And here is also the 30-day notification form. And here's the questionnaire as well, and the additional questions for micro businesses particular. But then this is the guide that we have. And in this guide, it's essentially breaking down this as well, but it kind of makes it into a checklist so that it's easier for people to follow through. And this will be updated, obviously, because before it said the following are due by the Monday prior to the meeting. We want to make sure that we have a little bit more time to review these things.
Put it 10 days.
10 days. In Aracela's draft, she actually put that they should submit documents at least 2 weeks before, which I actually think is great, but I don't know if it gives enough time. Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
2 weeks before to us or to us?
2 weeks before they would
Before our
submit,
meeting.
right, instead of like 10 days, it would be 14 days before our meeting.
I mean, the more time the better. But, what if they could only do it within the 10-day line?
I think 10 days, and the reason why we discussed 10 days is because it's sufficient time. It at least gives us a week and probably that weekend, right, to review.
Right.
But also gives them enough time if they're still gathering stuff, if they come to the board and if they come to the board office and let's say sometimes the board office will actually just review it right then and there and they say, this is missing, you may want to review this or like change it. That's one of the things that the board office will start doing. They'll review the documents. They'll review the documents to just see if there is anything missing up front and just tell them right then, like that they don't have to come before us and then we ask them. So kind of like to avoid delaying it even further, the office could just say, hey, we're missing this right now, you may want to review that. So I feel like that's sufficient time.
Yeah, look, whether
I
it's
think
for
the
10 days or 10 days, it makes no difference to me. Yeah. What do you think?
I think 10 days is good. What are your thoughts?
You said 2 days?
10 versus
10
14.
Okay, 10. I think, I'm good with that timeline.
The 10 days?
I think it's appropriate because before the 10 days, there's already something else you have to do. So it's all part of the process.
All right. So what's your for 10 days?
Yeah, 10 days works for me.
10 days.
Wow.
Hector, if you're on, if you want to share, are your thoughts on 10 days versus 14 days?
I definitely agree with extending the time frame that we have because it will allow us to have sufficient time to definitely review because, having a short window doesn't give room for any mistakes or whatnot. If in case we have to double back or circle back on anything. And usually the notice itself is 30 days. So I think 10 days is nowhere near enough.
You don't think 10 days is enough? You think that we should have 14 days?
Correct. Yes, that's correct.
I don't care,
We'll love to hear. Same for me. The only reason why I was saying 10 is just because to make the applicant's life just easier and not make them have to do stuff a lot sooner. Just because they'll get the questionnaire at least 21 days before, right? So from 21 days to 14 days, that only gives them a week to really like turn around all of the documents. So 10 days just give them a little more bandwidth to actually turn around the questionnaire, the notice and everything.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, obviously, Hector, will also, as all of you know who are online, our chair isn't here unfortunately today, but would love to engage him in that discussion. But at least we all agree that it should be more than the 7 days.
Right.
And 10 or 14. Ursula, I think this was so great, by the way. The other thing too, in the draft protocol that Ursula shared with us was just to actually put. Oh, that's not for us.
Oh, that's over there.
Sorry about that.
In another room.
There's a section here that just
There's
says,
another meeting.
ensure that your proposed location is compliant with New York State proximity restrictions for cannabis businesses. So here, one of the things that I really loved about what she shared, and let me just stop sharing my screen here. One of the things that I love that she shared is that she actually listed out the name of the current businesses that are already in our district. So Araceli, I think that was wonderful. We'll definitely make sure that we add that. I think that that would be helpful. As you see on our website, there was already a checklist there that says, make sure that it's at least 500 feet away from schools and the churches and the other cannabis businesses. But we didn't actually list the businesses out. So I think that that was very, very, very helpful. And I think that we should add that as well.
Isn't there's the one that we spoke about? The one on 16 whatever.
Oh, that actually, that's another thing. I'm glad you mentioned that. So there is a dispensary that just never came before the board for its review, and we're hoping that that doesn't happen again. I think a lot of that could just be either maybe they actually just got away with not providing the notice.
Yeah.
But we're hoping that as the regulations improve and OCM's process improves, things like that don't fall through the crack. But also, again, solidifying our process and streamlining it so that it gives everyone that opportunity to do that as well. So yes, that's a really great question. And Carl, thank you for adding that. And The other great things that I thought was really wonderful is that there's an actual link in this suggested document to the CB12 calendar, which I also think that we should include in our guidelines, like somewhere at the top where we mention where we actually mention the meetings, like when we meet, we should actually just put a link to the CB12 calendar. And I think that that's really great. And then last but not least, Araceli has some notes at the bottom that just said essentially that the notice to municipality forms for a single premise under different entities will be reviewed as one applicant, and failure to appear before the task force will result in CB12 advising OCM to deny the application or providing an unfavorable recommendation. And then the last thing that she mentioned here was that CB12 may advise to deny an application that is not in compliance with New York State law or OCM guidelines. I thought, no, she actually mentioned this at the beginning. But yes, basically that we can actually tell someone or not tell or advise to deny the application. One of the things that she mentioned in the introductory paragraph, which I think it's great, and we kind of do mention it here, but it could probably be a little bit more, I don't know if we want to just edit the language, but one of the things that she mentioned at the very beginning here is that although the community board does not make the final decision on licensing, its recommendations carry significant weight in the OCM and CCB review. I love that language. I think that we should put it in somewhere in here. One of the things that we have here in our introductory guidelines is essentially that says, as part of this process, the board reviews applications and provides an official opinion, either in support or opposition, which becomes part of the record that helps inform the Office of Cannabis Management's recommendation to the Cannabis Control Board. So it doesn't say it explicitly like this,
Right.
but I really like this, so I think that we should include this language.
Yeah, that was a good language.
Yeah.
I would say it would fit very well on that second paragraph after the first sentence.
Great, I like that,
That's
I
a
think
good-
that's good.
All right.
If you can, I don't have a pen,
So
so maybe we
I
can mark it so we
Can
Can I
can.
jump in briefly?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, hi. No, I just wanted to say that in drafting the language, I was taking a look at some of our other neighbors' websites, particularly from Manhattan CBs 2 and 9. And so that's where some of this language is coming from, just for background. So there is precedence in other Manhattan community boards to have language like this. So I thought that it might also be useful
Yeah,
here.
I think most applicants are probably aware. I believe, I mean, it's on the OCM's website. They have that understanding. It's essentially, we are an advisory board,
It's sort
right?
of-
So,
It's sort of commonplace within, systems like this.
Right.
You advise, it carries weight, but it's not dispositive,
right,
But-
So-
I assume that after we get done with updating this stuff, that you come up with like a finalized version. Okay,
Yeah.
for this to, okay.
yeah, Ursula, that's really great that you mentioned that. And I feel like most applicants should know that this is just kind of like part of the process. They at least have to provide notice to us, but we are an advisory board and we don't make the final decision. However, just similar to SLA, it does carry some weight.
Right.
And I feel like our job is really to provide our opinion and also share our community's thoughts on this and
Right,
making
right.
sure that we are reflecting what the
Right,
community
right.
actually feels. And also just in addition to that, making sure that we are aligning with our community's expectations and making sure that we're maintaining the safety and
Right,
integrity and overall well-being of our district.
Yeah, I mean, it's the rare case where we make a recommendation and the higher body goes against that recommendation. It's
Yeah.
rare. So usually, the recommendations are adopted if we make them, so.
Yeah. Araceli, so I just quickly went through the draft that you shared with us. So again, thank you so much for that. Just want to give you some time and just space if you wanted to share anything else or highlight anything else for us in what you were thinking or anything that you want to share.
No, I think you honestly went through it perfectly. And again, it's just suggestions. You are absolutely welcome to do whatever you want with that information. I,
No,
I,
it came perfect timing. We
yeah,
literally just had a meeting about this last week. So when I saw the email, I was just like, wow, look at that. I was like,
timing. Love that.
perfect timing. And again, we're so grateful for your partnership and how you continue to show up here and engage with us.
Of course,
Did
Um,
you
love
say
the support.
show next week, next meeting,
yes.
for a fuller presentation of, okay.
Mhm. Um, and then that's about it. I just wanted to make sure that I'm just checking in with anyone on the call if anyone has actually any questions regarding this update that we just shared. No? Wonderful. The only other thing that I really wanted to discuss, but we don't actually have Annette here on the call. One second. We briefly discussed at our last meeting that there were two events that our community partners wanted us to engage in. These events are happening later in April. One of them is with Happy Monkey and the other one is with Annette. We shared that at the last meeting. They were here briefly. We wanted to just really discuss and get an idea of what our footprint looked like to see if they had any updates or what else they would want from us or see what we need, kind of like flush those details out. I don't see that they are online right now, so we'll probably just have to,
So their
connect
event
with
or
them.
our
It's
event?
their event, yeah.
For Annette and Happy Monkey?
Yeah, they're doing two separate events. One of them is on April 9th and the other is on April 20th. And remember, Happy Monkey had shared that they wanted to get a location. They were looking at the location in Inwood, what's it called, the Hudson.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have an update on that, and I don't see that they're online so that we can ask them, but we'll connect with them offline to see. But either way, we would have the April meeting
Exactly, before then.
before then, so we can just get any updates then. Any questions right now? No.
Would they be like education based? Like,
Yeah, so at least for the one that Happy Monkey shared, they wanted to do kind of some sort of like forum and like tabling to have some like education, some one pagers and like different, I guess, different community partners also like being there. I don't have all the details, so that's based off what I recall from the last meeting.
yeah.
But we can most certainly ask them to just share their bigger plan at the following meeting.
Who do they anticipate will attend? Members of
Community
the public?
members, they most certainly invited us, CUNY. I think they do want to have some sort of like tabling for like information and like
Yeah, I was just
education
gonna say,
purposes.
maybe this process, incorporating it there because this is part of the licensing.
Yeah, one of the things that Nobles had actually mentioned, and I'm sure that we'll talk about this at the next meeting, is that we want to make sure that probably before we go into recess over the summer, or if not, in June, we'll have a special meeting, just like the task force and the board, so that we can fully just talk about cannabis and this process and expectations for our office, because he thinks that it should be a special meeting where a lot of like community members come to, but also to really get an idea of, and one of the things that I'm really looking forward to is just the report that Araceli would provide about, the sentiment in the community. But as we continue to review these applications, we want to make sure that we are keeping our community in mind and like what they want, what they care about, what's important to them. And it's not something that we will probably just get out of these meetings. It has to be something that we publicize a lot more in advance and say, we are gonna have this special meeting and it will be with the entire general board and the task force. And we're gonna talk about, what are your thoughts? What do you wanna hear? What kind of businesses do you want? What's important to you? This is our process. What things may be helpful? And like, kind of have this special meeting just around this, review process, just to hear like their thoughts. But we'll flush that out more, probably at the next month's meeting, but we want to do that sooner rather than later.
So, but previously, how were we doing an outreach to community folks to get their views. Did you have any formal process for doing that?
No, I mean, they
Before.
post a notice,
Okay.
but sometimes, that's what I'm saying, it's like, it's a week before, that was the requirement, you post it 7 days before, and if somebody happens to walk by,
What I mean,
then they would see it.
in terms of we trying to get a sense of what our community feels about anything, and is there some formal ways that we use to find out what our community maybe thinks?
I don't know that
I mean,
there's
sometimes some boards or some organizations might hold a meeting or something and gather community, like a forum.
right, that's that's essentially what we're hoping to have, some sort of like special meeting, and we've been talking about this in the last couple of months, about some sort of also education forum, because I feel like we've been doing a lot of the review part, but we want to make sure that people are getting educated, so inviting the Office of Cannabis Management to present on it, to invite other partners and maybe the dispensaries to just actually come and like share about them, and like a lot much more than what we do here, which has been mostly reviewing, but getting really into that education part, and also really engaging the community in this process.
How many licensed operations do we have in the community? Do you know?
How many what?
Cannabis licensed operations?
4.
4. Oh, really?
4 now. And there will be one coming before us next month, if I'm not mistaken.
License?
Are these, most of the businesses that already are established in the community are, just for like selling, right, just selling?
No consumption.
No consumption.
We had one, I believe Happy Monkey said that they may start delivering, and we had one that was approved for delivery. I'm not sure that they've actually commenced operations yet. I think it was on hold.
So it's sort of like a takeout thing? Okay.
And then Excite LLC, they got,
But I'm hoping that they will let us know when they'll start
Yeah.
actually, their operations once everything's done, because it probably takes some time. Once they leave us here and we provide our opinion, then OCM still has to go through like their process. But also, we're just really also hoping to make this process easier for the applicants. We don't want to give everyone a hard time. We just want to make sure like, hey, it's very clear cut here.
Yeah.
Here's what you have to do. Let's make it easy for you, because they do go through a lot in this process. Some of them have to wait many months. A lot of them, get frustrated because they're like, we're losing money. We have to go here. We don't know this. Sometimes things aren't very clear. So we want to make sure that we are being as helpful as we can to them. That's really everything that I had. Does anyone have any new business or anything else that they want to share? No?
When it comes to the location on 161, I'm very like I don't really know how to describe the feeling, but it's kind of disappointing that they were like able to just
Bypass?
to just bypass that process. For me, it comes down to like equity, because I feel like everyone deserves the same process for it. So I'm just wondering how we could have prevented that. Was it something that occurred within OCM's timeline? Like, where did the applicant miss that step? Like, could there have been a miscommunication somewhere?
Is Paula still here? Because it's my understanding, but I don't want to speak on this and we'll have to clarify that. So just to be clear, because I don't want it to be like, well, Carmen said, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that we didn't receive notice. So obviously, once we receive notice, the things start sticking for us, right? We have to put it on the agenda, we get the questionnaire. I'm not sure that we actually received that. I was gonna wait to see if Paula was here, but that's my understanding.
161st Street and Broadway,
Okay.
right on the corner. Because I saw when it was closed, and I saw there was like a marketing that said cannabis is going to be sold here. When I went up to it, it was no Community Board 12 notification, even though it said something about cannabis being there.
And also too, just one of the things that I want to share, when I was reading recently on OCM's website, the board actually has several things, right? So once we get the notification, we could provide an opinion or we could not. It has been the case, like, let's just say that the board could say, we actually don't have an opinion on this at all. That's also a possibility. So there is a scenario where the board doesn't say anything at all, and OCM could still kind of move forward with that process.
Yeah.
Which probably is why they move, I don't know. I don't want to answer the
Yeah,
wrong,
yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? But
So
I
they-
think
they
that we
got
should
license
discuss it.
without our input.
Right, that's essentially what happened.
The storefront.
And that was, yeah, that's a big miss, because we want to make sure, again, like you said, it's an equity point, but also that people's voices are being heard.
Do you know when it happened, approximately?
Last month,
Oh, really?
yeah, last month. That's when I started to notice it.
And also too, recently, there was like a certain wave of like applicant pools that they were put on pause. Like there was a lot of changes that's happened with OCM in the last 2 months that may have had some impact on that. But again, I don't want to speak because I
Yeah.
don't know for sure. But there were some changes where like some applicant pools were put on hold, and then they said you guys have to wait until next time, but then you provide notification way in advance. I mean, it was very confusing, at least to me. So, yeah, I'm sorry I don't have.
No, you're good.
And the license, how long does it run for?
I believe it has to be renewed after 2 years.
Okay.
So they'll come before us.
Then they'll come again.
Hopefully,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
By then the process should be,
Yeah, they have to.
even with OCM and like a lot of the changes,
They have to come
by
back.
then it should be fine. Again, just want to open up the floor for anyone who has anything else to share. Anyone, I see an Ethan online, and who else I see online? Thank you for joining us.
Hi, I'm just a Columbia student. I was visiting for a class project. I appreciate your presence. Thanks.
Awesome, thank you. And I see Juliet, I'm not sure if it's a small meeting today, so just, we're friendly. And we want to make sure that you engage if you wish to. All right. Well, if we don't have anything else, Hector, anything on your end?
Nothing on my end. Good job today.
Araceli, we look forward to having you next month in April. For those of you who have joined, please do join again in April. We will be having a report out from CUNY on the Cannabis Equity Report and the community's sentiment. We would really love to hear all that they have to share.
Yeah, looking forward to the conversation.
All right, bye, you guys.
Bye, everyone. Was there a motion?
Thank you.
Motion.
Yes, option.
Okay.
Thank you.